On July 7, 1456, in the midst of a Renaissance Europe embroiled in political strife, Joan of Arc's retrial culminated in a landmark verdict. Her innocent reputation, tarnished by accusations of heresy, was finally restored, signifying a monumental moment in French history. Joan, armed with faith and courage, stood before an assembly of clerics and nobles who deeply reverberated with conflicting emotions, reflecting on her past and their current judgments. As the retrial commenced, the audience held their breath, aware that this verdict could eternally alter Joan's legacy and reshape narratives of faith and power in France. The judge, sensing the delicate balance of justice and legacy, began to unravel the evidence against Joan, debating her supposed heresy against the backdrop of her valor in battle and faith. In a poignant moment, reflections on Joan's unwavering resolve during her trials and tribulations were raised by her supporters, branding her a martyr in the eyes of those present. As testimonies were presented, clerics debated the interpretation of her actions and the historical record of her bravery in both battle and faith emerged as counter-arguments against her alleged heresy. The court also considered the political landscape of France, where Joan's influence had transcended her lifetime, creating a complex web of admiration and disdain among nobles. As the proceedings continued, whispers filled the court about Joan's achievements and the unjust nature of her original trial, prompting renewed discussions of her innocence. In hindsight, secrets of the original trial surfaced, revealing instances of political manipulation and personal vendettas that had contributed to Joan's condemnation years earlier. With each testimony presented, Joan's supporters felt a growing sense of hope, believing that justice was finally within reach after decades of tarnished reputation. The local community began to rally behind Joan's legacy, igniting conversations about her martyrdom and the implications of her teachings for future generations. As Joan's story unfolded, the court began to see her not only as a figure of war, but as a beacon of faith that transcended her tragic fate. With her legendary status evolving, Joan became a subject of fascination, inspiring poets and artists beyond the borders of France, and hinting at the beginning of her immortal legacy. Not just a defender of France, Joan was now viewed as a passionate champion of the divine, inspiring faith amid adversity in a court that once condemned her. The advocates for Joan seized the moment to illustrate the powerful faith she inspired, aiming to reclaim not just her honor, but the essence of justice itself. A favorable verdict seemed imminent as the judge deliberated, with community sentiment steadily building for Joan among both peasants and nobility alike. As the judge prepared to announce the verdict, the atmosphere was charged with tension. The echoes of past injustices still felt in the walls of the court. Finally, the judge proclaimed Joan not guilty of heresy, and a collective sigh of relief permeated the courtroom, marking the dawn of her redemption. This moment, a symbolic triumph of faith prevailing against oppression, not only vindicated Joan, but also reignited discussions about the integrity of the Church. Joan's acquittal served as a clear message to future generations that faith, justice, and perseverance pave the way for righteousness and change within society. The news of Joan's exoneration quickly spread, igniting a movement that honored her legacy and questioned the ethical boundaries of political and religious authorities. Joan would be honored with numerous memorials, solidifying her place as an emblem of courage, faith, and the relentless pursuit of truth throughout France and beyond. The event not only altered Joan's standing in France, but also initiated profound contemplation about the nature of heresy and how it was defined within the Church. As the sun shone through the Gothic windows of the court, a hushed anticipation filled the air. Joan, with her determined hazel eyes, stood tall, embodying the spirit of a warrior who had faced countless battles. Today, she stood as a beacon of hope for her supporters, gathering strength from the love and faith the crowd had placed in her. The arguments began as clerics laid out the case against Joan. They spoke of her visions and voices, which many deemed suspicious, yet her defenders argued passionately, emphasizing her unwavering faith and divine purpose. Joan listened intently, her expression unwavering, embodying the spirit of resilience. Joan's defense commenced, led by her noble supporter who articulately narrated her battles. He described how she inspired the French troops, igniting their resolve against oppression. His voice resonated with pride as he recounted her bravery, painting her as a heroine of France. The discussion turned to the political motivations behind Joan's original trial. Her supporters argued that jealousy and fear drove the accusations, prompting the court to reconsider the integrity of the judicial processes. The judge observed keenly, sensing the shift in sentiments. As testimonies unfolded, witnesses spoke of Joan's character, her unwavering faith, and commitment to her country, swaying public opinion in her favor. The audience, once doubters, began to nod in agreement as the narrative of her innocence took shape. Among the supportive voices, one of her fellow soldiers recounted their experiences on the battlefield. He illustrated the miraculous moments when Joan led them to victory, reigniting faith among her believers and challenging the skeptics. Gradually, the tide began to turn. Courtiers and clerics, once skeptical, found themselves wrestling with their biases as they reevaluated Joan's actions in light of new perspectives and testimonies that emerged. As the trial drew closer to its conclusion, the anticipation was palpable. Joan remained composed, her eyes scanning the faces of those before her, searching for signs of hope amidst the tension, her spirit undeterred. The judge, taking in the weight of testimonies and the shifting sentiments in the room, prepared to deliver the verdict. His lips moved slightly as he formulated the words that would change history. With bated breath, the courtroom fell silent as the judge finally spoke, his voice echoing with authority as he declared Joan not guilty of heresy. A wave of relief swept through the room, with tears of joy mingling with disbelief. The announcement of the verdict was met with cheers and applause from the supporters. Joan's acquittal signified not just her redemption, but also a moment of reckoning for the church and courts involved in her tragic fate. As the initial celebration began to wane, the implications of the verdict began to settle in. It marked the beginning of a new chapter for Joan, whose legacy would inspire future generations to fight for their beliefs. Discussions about the church's integrity echoed through the halls as critics began to demand accountability for past injustices. This acquittal not only rejuvenated Joan's legacy, but also sparked a broader conversation about justice within the church. In time, Joan's acquittal instigated a reevaluation of numerous trials conducted in the name of heresy, highlighting vulnerabilities in judicial processes and fueling demands for reform. As the years passed, Joan's story evolved into legend. Her image transformed into that of a fearless warrior and martyr, symbolizing resilience and faith for the people of France and beyond. Joan of Arc's legacy became intertwined with national identity, her name prompting waves of inspiration during future struggles for independence and justice. Her story transcended her lifetime. On July 7, 1456, the retrial of Joan of Arc commenced, drawing significant attention amid the political unrest of Renaissance Europe. Noble supporters rallied for her vindication, while the courtroom atmosphere buzzed with anticipation and skepticism. Clerics gathered to present evidence, their voices echoing the walls, debating Joan's alleged heresies. Joan listened attentively, clutching her symbolic gown, ready to defend her faith as doubts about her visions resurfaced. As the trial unfolded, supporters recounted Joan's remarkable courage on the battlefield, emphasizing her unwavering faith that rallied the French troops during times of despair. The the room filled with hushed admiration. The judge, wearing a solemn expression, listened intently to the testimonies. His hand rested upon a heavy book of laws as he contemplated the weight of the decision ahead, aware of the historical impact. With the recounting of Joan's courageous achievements, public perception shifted, turning skepticism into admiration. The judge began to show signs of reconsidering the accusations that had once condemned her. A fellow soldier, once alongside Joan in battle, stepped forward to provide a powerful testament, sharing stories of victories attributed to her leadership and divine guidance, swaying the court's sentiment further. As testimonies about her character deepened, Joan's image transformed from an accused heretic to a revered symbol of hope and faith, prompting more people to support her cause fervently. Discussions turned to the motives behind Joan's original trial, with accusations of envy and fear resonating among the clerics and nobles as they reconsidered the weight of the evidence against her. As the trial neared its conclusion, tensions heightened. Joan remained resolute, embodying the strength of her convictions, determined to clear her name and uphold her beliefs. Finally, the judge stood preparing to deliver his verdict. A thick silence enveloped the room, heavy with anticipation, as all eyes were fixed on him, awaiting the pivotal moment of justice. When the judge declared Joan not guilty, the courtroom erupted with disbelief and joy. Tears of relief flowed as supporters embraced, marking a pivotal moment in which justice was finally served. This moment marked not only Joan's redemption but also ignited conversations regarding the integrity of the church. The verdict became a rallying cry for reformation within the judicial system. Political leaders and religious figures began to reconsider their stance on judicial processes, realizing the implications of this retrial. The discussion about Joan's faith evolved into a broader critique of moral integrity. Joan's acquittal soon transformed her from a tragic figure to a national hero, symbolizing strength and faith. Her story inspired many and became a beacon of hope for future generations. Across France, towns began to erect statues and memorials in honor of Joan, celebrating her newfound status. Her legacy started to unify people under a shared national identity. As Joan's story spread throughout Europe, she became a symbol in various struggles for justice and faith, continuing to inspire numerous movements against oppression. Historians began to explore Joan's life deeply, her trials and triumphs prompting analysis of political and religious dynamics in medieval society, shaping modern understanding of justice. A verdict of 1456 not only vindicated Joan, but also underscored the importance of historical memory and justice in the context of faith and belief, impacting future ecclesiastical proceedings. Joan's story continues to resonate through history, serving as a lasting message of courage, integrity, and the unyielding quest for truth against prevailing injustices, inspiring countless legends. Today, Joan of Arc is venerated as a saint, her legacy immortalized in art, literature, and public consciousness, a testament to resilience in the face of trials, both past and present.